Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the April 8th Budget and Facilities Committee meeting, which today is actually a joint work session of the entire Board of Ed. So we have all 7 Board of Ed members here. Today's agenda is our final budget review. Hopefully we're going to see the final budget today, all the allocations, and hopefully give our blessing to move on to the next budget approval, the next Board of Ed meeting. And without further ado, I'm going to give the floor to Mrs. O'Hara, who's going to walk us through where we landed from since Tuesday night.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everybody. So at the last Board of Ed meeting, we discussed what basically needed into the budget of the request and what we had to reduce to get below the tax levy. There was concern expressed about the Twilight program, which the district does really think it is a good program to put in place. And if we were able to actually get it in this year, that would be great. If not, we could push it off to the following year. So what I've done is I've looked at the budget. There was one item in front of you. You have this list. It's a breakdown basically of the requests that were requested and the values associated with them. So one of the suggestions I had, the Twilight program is a $95,000 estimate for the program. And what it does, it provides an alternative educational setting for students who don't do as well in the typical setting. So after hours, they would be able to come, and it really would help, we believe, with graduation rates and helping students to cross the line, the finish line for graduation. So what I've done is, in one of the BOCES code, you'll see it, I have it highlighted, it says science kit expansion. Mm-hmm. That was something that Dr. Mioli had put in. We started in kindergarten with this science program, and they're kits basically. Mm-hmm. And each year they've been adding another grade level. So this was to incorporate the 5th grade also into it with professional development. They also have Project Lead the Way, which the teachers could choose either type of program to work with the children. So he felt that if we did reduce it by $25,000, which the total line for that was $150,000. In prior years, it was only $86,000. So we felt that if we scaled back the $25,000, it wouldn't be detrimental to the program. So what I was proposing is using that $25,000 plus we were $40,000 below the tax levy limit. I thought we could go to $5,000 below the tax levy, so just use $35,000 of that kind of cushion. And then I have contingencies built into like our retirement system contributions. So I figured I could reduce that contingency.
Can I just reference that? Did you see? Okay.
Yeah, it's
You just walked out. Would you like me to read that then? There's a
people
technical
who can't
issue.
know there's no sound coming through the YouTube.
So we can say whatever we want now.
Unless it's lip readers. Always face this way.
Wear a mask. I'm good.
Right, so
That
those are the benefits of a mask.
We can mutter whatever we want. People will be like, where did that come from?
I do miss that for that reason. People didn't see
Oh,
what I was
just
saying
came on.
underneath my.
Okay.
Oh, we knew.
Yeah.
You all
We
didn't.
knew.
You didn't see it though. You couldn't hear it or see it.
Okay, I think we're back on.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So with that, we would get to the $95,000 necessary for the Twilight program, and you'd be $5,000 beneath the allowable tax levy. We were hoping that the state would have passed their budget by now, which they haven't. We're hoping that next week it will, but which leaves school districts wondering if they should adopt their budget now or wait.
They apparently said they reached an agreement right last night. So there is potential that it'll be done tonight, today, or by Monday, but apparently they have a unofficial agreement.
Was our drop dead on the budget? Because it's not the 12th.
It's the 25th, actually.
Oh, so we
So-
can move our.
But we have dates that we must get the budget report card out, flyer, So, and that's the printer. So if we know our numbers, it's best that we don't change our dates.
Right.
Because, and yesterday at the legislative task force meeting, we did talk about the AXO rep, what is the anticipation, or is there, and he basically said that we should all operate on the original January runs that we got remaining flat, that then there is no talk that the numbers are gonna go down. The battle right now that is taking place in Albany, why the budget had not been approved yet, was regarding bail reform and something else that had really nothing to do with education. And there was no indication that education was going to get a reduction. If anything, we might get an increase. So I think with Kathy saying operating on a flat basis, I think our timeline should stay as is, because we do not have the luxury.
Let's stick to
Okay, sorry.
this agenda and let's talk about, yeah, that's okay.
So, basically, if the state does come in with their run, say, on Wednesday, and the board has already adopted, the board is approving the expenditures,
Right.
not the revenue side.
Correct.
So you can approve the expenditures, and then if you have more state aid come in, perhaps we go further under the tax levy limits.
Correct,
You know,
yes.
instead of the 5,000, you go whatever the increase might be. Or sometimes the state aid runs change also. They're based on a snapshot of data. It's, so whatever you had submitted, that's what it's going to be based on. Then you're going to have the actual costs come in, so it may vary slightly.
But if the runs come down,
Speak loud.
sorry, if what we're getting from the state comes down, that could actually impact our budget because it would,
The levy.
our
You
levy
need it.
can't go up anymore, so we just have to have that in the back of our mind. But you're pretty confident, Emily, that it's not coming down.
Correct,
Yeah.
and that's the news that we're hearing from Albany. The other thing too is, if we had to, we could look at our reserves and perhaps use some of the reserves to offset it, because I do not think it's gonna be, significant.
In
that-
either direction.
Yeah, in either direction, so.
But I think you make a very valid point, Kathy. What we are approving as a board and adopting as a board is the expenditures. And so that information does not change, and that's what we all have to basically say yea or nay to. After that, it is, like you said, if we get final numbers, I do believe by Tuesday we'll have final numbers. So I think, but if, again, I'd also probably be done by March 31st, so. But I think when we get the final numbers, then it would be a discussion about either leaving that money, if we got more money, putting it in reserves, reducing our tax levy, like that's the discussion that we could have after we adopt, right?
Yes, and there's also, there's a big conversation about, do we go up to the tax levy? Do we, we got 2.3 million in foundation aid. Why aren't we reducing for the taxpayers? Why aren't we going lower? And in our legislative task force meeting yesterday, Tom Teetham spoke about that issue, and I've shared with the board an article that they wrote saying how once you leave money on the table, basically, that affects future budgets and tax caps, but also with the rate of inflation, how it has dramatically, it's up at 4.5, I think, for last year, but current estimates are up at like 7.6. So that's so much different. Our tax levy is 2.583. We'd be going out at 2.58, significantly below inflation rates. So it's just, they're advising to go as close to the cap as you can.
And I want to point out for everybody that our whole budget, which includes significant additional program, is a total budget increase of only 4.5% from last year in an environment where we have inflation that's probably real closer to 7 to 9%. So for anyone who's listening, I think it's a very responsible budget. Yeah.
And also the tax levy should be the focus, because we're at 2.58. The average for Long Island, I think, is about like 2.5 or 2.3, but statewide it's about 2.8, which is right where we are. So I think it's encouraging. I think it's a student-centered budget, and I think it's mindful of the taxpayers. but the foundation aid is something you should have been having for over 10 years now. And so we're finally getting the money and we're able to make it more student focused. And the administrators have worked very hard on this and diligently, and I think it's a sound budget, and so that's my recommendation.
Mrs. Brooks?
So throughout this process, I've had this one little thing that I've never really understood what was wished for and added, and that's the Naviance curriculum for, I can't remember what it was.
I think it's the middle
It's the
school.
middle
It's
school.
middle school. And I still don't understand what it is, why it's necessary, what it does. And also, what kind of data, aside from that, what kind of data is going to be captured on the kids? Because I know for a fact that Naviance is a huge data vacuum cleaner, it just sweeps it all up. So my issue here is really, why are we purchasing this? What really is the reason, and if something needs to be cut, sorry to the guidance department, but is that something that could be cut? Or why is it really necessary, even if we can afford it in terms of the money we have? Why, I still don't understand why it's so important to have in the budget. That's the one little thing, I know I think it's like $40,000.
$11,000.
I'm gonna make a suggestion.
It's minuscule, but
Yeah.
I've never had that question really answered.
I'm gonna make a suggestion, because I don't think in today's meeting, you came prepared, we talked about this yesterday, to talk about these individual items. But is it possible to get a memo from
That's
Mrs.
fine,
Director
that's
about
fine.
that? Because there's some like, it was a little hard to she presented,
Yeah.
and it sounded great to me, but it was very high level. Maybe we can get like even something from the company, just explain exactly what we're
Can I just
buying.
find out what exactly
Yeah.
we're requesting, because I think
She wants to
the middle.
understand what
Well,
the
what
details
it is
about
and why we
versus
want it.
why we
What
need
is the Naviance program,
And
and
why
why,
should we want
why
it?
does Weber want it?
So, just a memo would be great.
Just-
Maybe
just so that
before
I
the
know.
next packet. Yeah, okay.
Especially.
I thought it was discussed already, but let's get it.
I agree with Ms. Brooks, I was completely unclear on what it actually was.
So we'll get,
It felt like a lot of
we'll get the memo.
Annette, did you go to the guidance meeting? That
It was not
It was not discussed?
And especially where we're like trying to cobble together a little bit of money to get Twilight in.
Well, we found the money for Twilight.
Right, but like none of us understand
Well,
what the
well-
Naviance system is, and we do understand what
Rachel,
this adds.
would we have time on Monday for them to pop in for like 10 minutes to explain it?
To add to the curriculum.
Yeah, is it more curriculum related than?
People don't understand Naviance.
I don't
I
wanna
know
talk-
The
Naviance.
part that they're adding, the part that they're adding was
I think,
really
we
not.
just get a
That's
memo.
I think Mike is gonna get us a
Yeah,
memo.
I just don't wanna
Let's
talk
get a
about it
memo.
today for
Let's just get a memo.
$11,000 at this
Okay.
meeting, yeah,
Okay.
go ahead, Rachel.
So, I don't know if this is the moment, Adam, feel free to kick it down, but the flip side of that is this science kit thing. I'd like to understand exactly what we're cutting if we cut that, because science in the elementary school is something that has been added back in over the last several years, and I think it's really important.
So my understanding is, because of COVID, you cut back on manipulatives, and these science kits bring those manipulatives back. It's not cutting all of it, it's just,
It's cutting the
Reducing it.
addition, right, because it was
But part of the
86,000,
addition,
right? It
yeah.
was 86,000, and went up to 150, so it's going down by 25. So it's not a cut.
And Rachel, one thing to understand is, what I had, when we were planning for this meeting yesterday, Kathy was explaining to me, it sounded like Dr. Mioli had said that there's two choices that teachers can pick, and he felt like based on however many people are gonna pick each one, there's actually no cut in this number. It
Okay,
was more
so,
like, yeah,
Reduction.
So-
there's no service cut.
okay,
Yeah.
so, Kathy, you had said this was adding fifth grade this year. We're still adding fifth grade,
yes.
they're just gonna have less
No.
science.
because I.
No, no.
No,
No.
Less stuff?
No, the
No.
expenditures.
So I had a conversation with Dr. Mioli about this, because
Uh-huh.
I knew that we were going to have to go below the tax cap. And we spoke for like 15 minutes, and he said that teachers have the choice between Project Lead the Way or this science. We call them kits, which is the manipulative part of it, but there's also professional
Curriculum and-
development in there. And he said, so he doesn't know what the teachers are going to pick, and he doesn't want to confine them to a certain thing. So he had some contingency in there in case more pick science. But if they pick Project Lead the Way, and let's do, we can always transfer the funds into
Okay.
the science kit. So it was kind of a buffer,
Okay,
just so we wouldn't have to do a transfer. So
fantastic.
he was fine with this, so,
I mean, if Dr. Mealy is okay with this and he
Yes.
thinks that we're still managing to do the same thing with it and we can cover it if we need to, I'm fine with that.
And then there was also like a retirement, contribution that we were gonna reduce.
right, I have a contingency
So-
for the employee reserve, not employee reserve, the ERS contribution that we have to make each year. I have a contingency in there, and I just reduced it by 3. That's all.
Okay. So we're basically just like removing buffers from a lot of little places to get there.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, really only from 2 places.
Okay.
So it seems like they did a good job. They heard that the board was interested in this program. They found a way to get it. Like we said yesterday, it was a small amount of money relative to the overall budget, so.
Again, the overall budget is what we have to
Correct.
concentrate on,
So
right?
that's-
Because we move things around all the time.
Yeah.
So it's the overall number, not necessarily the specific programs.
So
Totally,
before
but we
we
also
start-
wanna make sure we have
Yeah.
enough in there to cover
I
what
think
we want
that's
to cover.
yeah.
Before we start with questions, Mr. Hart, are you done with, are you done with the presentation or the context?
I think I'm good.
Okay, so should we just go around with questions, just, I saw Emily, Julie, yeah.
My only, and I might have, so in moving all of this around, can you tell me again, what is our final budget number? And can you, it is the 174, and then our
Yes.
final tax levy number is 2.58 or 2.58?
It's 2.58.
Okay,
5.8?
that's what it is now, that we, because we're 5,000 under,
Below,
right, okay.
yes, yeah.
And we are below still the
So
levy.
you would have a simple majority vote, you wouldn't need to get a super majority. No.
So,
And we're still at a 4.5% increase budget to budget. then with that
correct,
number.
4.523.
4.523,
That's exact, yeah.
fantastic. Okay, thank you, that was my question.
And the transfer to capital
Didn't change.
We
is the full
remained at
amount
2.
that we, yeah, okay. Great. Should we just go round robin? Rachel, did you, questions?
My only comment is I'd like us to not leave the last $5,000 on the table. Right? If possible.
I don't feel comfortable going any lower than 5,000 because,
No, Rachel
There
wants you
could
to
be-
add the 5,000.
no, I know. But I mean, I don't feel comfortable going to 4,000 or 3,000. I think 5,000 on this $175 million budget is not significant.
Is it because you don't have all the exact numbers and you want to?
No, it's more because the state will come in and audit your numbers. And if, say, you're off by, I don't know,
Oh, I see. what you're saying.
$10 or $20, I don't want to say, oh, now we have to go back out, or,
Yeah,
I just
you
think
don't want
it's-
them to find something and have us accidentally be over.
Right.
So we should
and you
be
can
slightly
say
under.
you're under.
Okay, thank you.
Go, Emily, go.
I actually am gonna go and say that I understand inflation. I understand that the 4.5% is lower than, but I do feel that going from a $167 million budget to a $174 million budget is a big increase. I know we've done it because we're adding programming, and I know that we've done it by adding, a little bit more to transfer to capital, so I appreciate I appreciate this budget, and I think it is very student-focused and very centered around our vision and mission and our portrait of a graduate, so I applaud the efforts. I am concerned about the 4.5% increase. I am concerned that we are going to hear, this is a huge budget and so I think it's important that we can say we're below the tax cap. I really do believe that saying the words below the tax cap are important, and I'm asking that when we finally get our actual state aid numbers, we do look at perhaps decreasing the levy. Again, I know it's a conversation we will have to have afterwards, but I am confident, sorry guys. I support the 174 million, I support this budget and I support everything that's in it, and I give you full authority to do, move things around as you need. but I am concerned about the increase, so I just wanted to say that.
And I share your concern, Emily, but I do think it's a very, we had very ambitious board goals this year. I think that district goals. I think that a lot of what we and our superintendent wanted to accomplish can only be done with money. We were very lucky this year with the state aid situation that we were able to add a lot of that to the budget. Things Port Washington has needed for a long time. That being said, personally, I agree with you. We have it's set, and to the extent that there is more found money, I would certainly advocate returning that to enough is enough. Yeah.
I do want to say
Yeah.
something. I just reminded me something that we talked about yesterday that I think the entire board did not hear. We did ask about the whole so if we've all discussed about the foundation aid money coming in and the fact that there is concern that foundation aid is being funded by federal funds. The state budget is, there's federal funds that are coming in, and what happens if federal funds so next year they'll be there, but after that, what happens? We were told that in fact the state budget is actually in good shape. We were told not to be really concerned about that, right? And that the projections for the state are good, and that the projections for income for the state, our revenues on the state side are good, so that there is no fear, which is what we all originally discussed when we got the foundation aid numbers, was that what happens in a couple of years, will we be, in a bad shape? So we were, again, nothing is set in stone, and who knows, and God knows what could happen and change the state budget, but at this point, it's not something we should be so concerned about at this point.
But it's still prudent to
Yes,
to,
of course.
It is prudent,
to
but-
defend the part, the
Of course.
piece of the revenue that we can control, which is
Yes.
the tax levy,
Yes.
and not fall behind there.
I also think one of the reasons that they're able to say that is this executive budget presented by the state did have parameters that were providing revenue sources in addition to federal funds that are long-term. Gambling monies are going
Yes,
to
the
sales.
online betting.
Yes, they are seeing that there's going to be an influx of revenue coming in. So we'll see, at least they were putting provisions in, which is why I think they could have that.
And there's
Inflation's
also,
good for sales tax revenue.
there's also a lot of optimism in Albany because of the change in governor.
Yes. Yes.
Much more open, and people are able to view their, voice their opinions, so, and not be shot down. So they also found some money too.
Right,
It was
right.
like 27 million.
So,
Mhm.
so I think this is like a speak now or hold your piece about the budget, so I think we should actually
Yes.
just go around the room and
We actually
Yeah.
probably should take a formal vote so that we can, actually, we don't need to take a vote.
no, we're gonna do that, but I do think we should
But
give her an
yes, this is
opportunity.
speak now or forever
Yeah.
hold your
So,
peace, correct.
Emily, you went,
I already
I
spoke.
went,
Mhm.
Julie, you're up. You,
Oh, I asked my questions, just to
Yeah.
put the
no, if
clarity
you,
in,
if you
and
just
I
wanna say
understand
anything
it.
about the budget or ask a
I
question,
do
yeah.
think I agree with everything that's said. I think we were responsible. I appreciate that we were very child-focused, program-focused. I saw things in here addressed that we haven't addressed in a while as a school district, and I do think we were very much in line with our district goals that we laid out at the beginning of the year, and I think this sets us up to continue with the strategic plan that's laid out and supporting those as well, so, and for future planning. So, I'm good.
Mrs. Dillard?
So I'm actually thrilled with this budget, and I appreciate all the hard work. I think for years in Port Washington, we've been sort of clawing our way back from behind. And if you look pre-COVID, we were passing budgets that were 2.5%, inching up towards scraping 3%, that had a lot less expansion in program than this budget shows. And I'm thrilled to support a budget with what I see as a very reasonable increase, especially given the environment, where we can go out and say to the public, we're making the education that is offered here better. There are improvements in this budget, as opposed to say, well, it's a 2.5% to 3% increase, because that's what it costs to give you what we already had, and maybe like one more teacher we needed somewhere. So I've been saying for years, I would love to defend a budget where we said we actually made stuff better, and this is that budget. We're expanding in really good ways, and I think it is responsible, but it's also amazing.
So yes, I'm piggybacking onto Julie and Rachel, and also to remind the community that much of what we're putting into the budget And Dr. Hines' recommendation for special education is something that we are woefully behind the times in here in Port Washington for whatever reasons that precede us. And so I know parents are very happy to see the special education program going in a different direction, which is the right direction, and hopefully will allow children, if properly, if appropriate, to come back into the district and save us money on that end. Not that the children are pawns, but I think there's a yin and a yang here to expand the programming in Port Washington so that they can be in the least restrictive environment in their home school, and I think that's really important. The other thing is, every child we can get to graduation is a child whose future we are hopefully saving. And bringing in the BOCES program, or expanding the BOCES program and expanding the options for those children and letting them know they are not forgotten or not disposable, I think is so important to send to the community. I think the community needs to embrace that and understand that not every child's path is to college. And we are big enough where we should be providing those opportunities and expanding them. So, and that costs money. And it was pulled back, I think, decades ago when college became the end-all and be-all across the United States, and I think the pendulum is swinging back, and we have to recognize that. So I'm very pleased to see both of those in the budget, and to also be able to say we haven't had to cut programming. No other child had to be harmed in order to make this happen, is my perspective, so thank you. Oh, and in terms of the budget increase, we left money on the table 2 years ago. We had a nice wide girth we could have used, and we left a lot of that money on the table. And I think it's important to be able to make progress by spending what we are legally allowed to spend. We're legally allowed to spend this money, and I think that because we're putting it into appropriate programming, that's what we should do. It's not fluff. I mean, this is important stuff, and it affects children's lives. So that's my thought.
Mrs. McLean?
So again, I'm at the end here, so I can sound like a broken record. And Adam after me, so you get to be the last broken record. I am very happy to support the ICT program. I'm very happy that we found a way to keep the BOCES Twilight program and the CTE programs, as well as the interpretation services for our Board of Education meetings to allow greater access to our community to participate.
No, ma'am, it's not for our, I just want to clarify so that we don't have misinformation. The interpretation services are at the discretion of the E&L department. I don't think this was for our meetings. It was based, right?
I have for both.
For both? Yeah. We put it in as interpretation services under the which one? Under BOCES,
I
right?
have for the board, and then I have for the email department for the.
Then my mistake.
Okay, anyway, let's let Mrs. McLean keep going.
So I'm happy to see that there's interpretation services at our VOE meetings to allow our community to participate more fully. My one question is, I don't see thought exchange on here. Are we not doing thought exchange?
That's-
These are
that's-
additions.
And that's funded through title grants.
Okay. So it doesn't come out of our general fund, so that's maybe a separate subject, but I would like to see that used more fully this coming year if we're going to spend even title grant money on it. It's valuable and can be a wonderful service. I would like to see us take full advantage of that if we're going to even use something, other monies out of the general, that are not part of the general fund. I am fully in support of this budget. I understand that inflation is a problem and it impacts our bottom line here as a school district as well, and we need to be conscious of that. So I'm very happy to support this budget and the fact that it is about as student-centered as we've been in a very long time.
Dr. Block?
For the first time in 3 years, I am not running for Board of Education seat, so I'm going to say I'm very happy with this budget.
Oh wait, if you were running for Board of Education seat, you'd be running against it?
No, he would talk more. He's
So I thought, you get a solo pick.
He's saving that for another 2
Well,
years.
I
Yeah.
know it's a little piece from now.
Yeah.
So,
So I'll just say,
Mine
this-
was
and
regardless.
like, and,
Mine was as my fiduciary duty.
yeah, but I do wanna say one last thing, and kind of on the vein of Adam Block running for school board, and, you know, myself and Mrs. Malconian, you know, I think last year there was a lot of talk and fear that this was gonna be, you know, a lot of us ran on excellence, and really, I got the sense that there was fear. in
and
the
the
community.
other, the rest of
No,
us
no,
ran
we
on
ran, no,
excellence.
excuse me. We ran on that was our campaign, right? That was not your campaign. But I think there was a lot of fear in the community that that this new board was gonna be very focused on the top, and that it was gonna be, you know, we only cared about our own kids or a certain group of kids. And this budget adds a lot of program that I think is only focused on the kids that people were afraid we were gonna forget about. There's really nothing added here for the topic, and, you know, purported gifted or et cetera.
Because we already have it.
Yeah, exactly, we already have it. So I think that, I'm very happy that this budget is the way it is, and we really are focusing on, and like I always said, and a lot of us, that excellence has to be at every level, and you can't have excellence at the top if you don't have excellence at the bottom. So, I just think that this is great. We're, you know, all the money we've added is ICT, additional BOCES programs for high school kids to increase graduation rates. And I think it's a unimpeachable budget, and I think that you guys really did a good job figuring out where we can use the money we have to improve outcomes. So, do you want to say anything,
I would
Dr.
like
Hines?
to say something.
Yeah.
Thank you. My apologies for being a little bit late. Was held up in a different meeting. I am thrilled with this budget, and I want to thank the board. I want to thank Kathleen and everybody else who had their part in making this happen. I think we would all agree. I think it touches upon all three levels: elementary, middle, and high school. I do believe Navion should be moved down to Weber. We'll talk about that in a different date. I think it's really important. But listen, we've optimized every hour, I believe, and the most important thing is it's all geared toward our students. And I'm really, really thrilled, and I look forward to Tuesday. So thank you.
Can I ask a question to Dr. Shields? The kindergarten projection numbers that we saw this week, it seems that some of the schools are at their number, and it's April. 2 of the schools are not, and I know that overall we're down, but is there any concern on your part or any in Central about where kindergarten numbers are and how we're planning for September? I'm just,
You know, I think it's early in the process. So you saw some of the schools were really low, and some of the schools are at their number already, which seems surprising this
Right.
early in the game.
right.
And I think, Ms. Gilliard, you brought it up at a recent board meeting, that these are numbers we're going to continue to monitor into the spring and into the summer. And if we feel we need to come to the board with a concern, we certainly will bring that to you. But right now, the numbers are substantially
Right now, we're
low.
still okay, right? Yes, because we're overall low.
We're expecting about 372.
And we're 320, I think
Right.
I saw the number.
How many are we at right now?
320.
Sorry, in the current kindergarten? Do you know what the total kindergarten
I don't
is?
have that in front of me right now, but
It's
it's
closer
not so
to
much
370.
about the current kindergarten,
Yeah.
it's about the 5th grade exiting
Right,
and the incoming kindergarten.
right.
So that's where the split, you know, the
Yeah,
difference.
no, I was more curious as it related to like sections and how they're allocated now, would it be?
You
So-
say you didn't pass
Yeah.
the fifth
Right.
grade because you're talking about number of staff people in the building.
That's right.
Right,
So if you're outgoing 5th grade, you needed 4 teachers, and your incoming kindergarten needs 4, you're fine.
right,
But if something moves
All
around,
of a sudden
suddenly
it's
you need an
5.
extra teacher, or you have 1 teacher too many.
But we also have the teachers overall, right?
Right.
So if Alien doesn't need 1 kindergarten
Yes.
teacher, it could go to
Right.
Manor Haven.
Exactly.
So we look across all 5 elementary schools,
Right.
and as we move deeper into that registration process for kindergarten, just like you got the report yesterday, I will continue to give you updates.
You have 362 students in kindergarten right now.
that's what that,
Okay,
okay.
thank you, I just wanted to add, that's it, just since we're talking budgeting.
If there's a need, I will come to you.
I didn't
Voice
think you
that.
wouldn't, but just, okay.
Great. I think that was really the agenda for today. We don't,
Can I just make a suggestion?
of course.
So, because it seems like we're all good and happy. I think the process this year, we all talked about was a new process, and I think it was great. I think we learned a lot from it. Can I just ask at a follow-up budget and facilities meeting that we do an assessment of anything that we would like to change, or anything we'd like to enhance, or what we liked about it, and just make sure that we're on track and
Yeah.
communicate that?
So I'm actually glad you brought that up, because that was what actually you and I had talked about previously. So I was going to ask that at the next Budget and Facilities Committee meeting, which is on,
23rd.
right now it's set for May 23rd, right? We have on the agenda projects for summer work, but I would like, if possible, that all of the board could attend. We won't, it will be a budget meeting, it won't be a board work session, but I do want to give everybody the opportunity to give feedback to Mrs. O'Hara and to me on how the budget process went, so we can kind of document that and see if we want to make any changes for next year. So that's going to be the second.
Adam, do you want to keep the meetings at 8:30 being that we're in person?
I
I don't
think
know.
I like,
It's up to you. I don't know.
if it works for everybody, it works. No, how about 9?
Well,
Well,
I
there-
just
there-
And
say.
you guys have, I know you guys have later, because I have
Yeah,
a
there's-
drop off, that's why, yeah.
Yeah, my bus comes at.
Okay, so let's do 9.
I'm just
There's only
saying-
one meeting left.
I know,
Yeah.
I'm just saying now that we're back
Let's
in
do it.
person, right?
Is that-
So
is that
just
okay?
make it the 23rd at 9 a.m.
Julie, that works for you?
And we will still speak about projects for the summer.
Yes.
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 Yes. Yeah.
And hopefully we celebrate passage.
We will.
Okay, so, we're gonna go to community comments. We have 2, just for those who are watching, or will watch later, we have 2 in-person community members.
Yay.
First, in-person committee meeting, so, do either of you have community comments you want to make? No? Good. Anybody else have any, new business, anything you want to bring up? Otherwise, we're out of here in 40 minutes.
Bravo.
Yeah, adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bravo, Adam.
Somebody needs to tell John, the camera's still on, right?
Yeah.
He might be in the meeting over there. He's not back.
I don't know how we unclose the meeting.
Sue and John, thank you for coming.
No
Great
problem.
seeing you guys.
John Hill, nice seeing you. Thank you for coming, everybody.
And I'm impressed because you have another meeting in 20 minutes, so you
I
were
know,
one of
so
the
you
great
were the only
ones that,
person
you are the
there.
only one, you get an extra gold star when
Right.
you reported that.
We were
They have
two presidents and principals.
Oh.
Not down to
So,
It's a meeting crawl.
and she does not live close to here, so she
We
has
were
got to
told,
get
we
there
were
for her
told none of the
virtual.
presidents would be able to make it.
Yeah, we have presidents and principals.
Yeah.
Right now.
I do need you for a second.
Okay.
Seeing you.
All right.
So,
Hopefully,
should be
And I learned a lot. I
Yeah,
thought that the 5, I heard on the 5,000.
keep in mind,
I learned a
so
lot
it's
about
still a draft
shovel
form,
money,
once it gets
yeah,
finalized,
yeah,
it
sometimes
does
it's-
go up on the
first
website as
time.
well.